Time. Open the meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening. Okay. I'll start by opening this zoning meeting with a roll call. Patrice Scott is here. Howard Burnham.
Here.
Freeman Plummer.
Freem here.
Omer C. Ahern Jr.
Present.
Okay, and Butch Cushing.
Here.
Here. Okay, and we noted that we're going to correct the record that Butch Cushing is the vice chairman for the next agenda. And let's look at our minutes for June 14th. Has everybody had a chance to look over?
Madam Chairman,
Yes? Omer?
I have a couple of concerns that I have on
Okay.
a change or two that I noticed in reading these over. On page 3 of 4, just before where it says facts and finding area, about halfway down the page.
Yep.
It says, Mr. Freeman Plummer made a motion to approve the variance, seconded by Butch Cushing. Then it says, all in favor, in favor.
Right.
Does that
All in
make
favor?
sense?
Nope. Just cross out the second in favor.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
May I have another
All right.
opportunity, Madam Chairman? Mm-hmm. Same thing at the top of page 4 of 4.
Yep.
All in favor, maybe
Right.
delete
Same
that.
thing. Yep.
That's very odd.
Yep.
And then one more item, if I may, Madam Chairman.
Sure.
We're under adjournment. I just checked with him before the meeting, and he says he has not legally changed his name yet. So it should be
Oh,
seconded by
Bush.
Butch Cushing.
Butch, B-U-T-C-H. That's a common error for some reason. Bush Cushing. All right.
So
And-
those are the only three
He's not from
things
Texas.
that jumped
Okay.
out at me.
All right, I have one correction
You do?
on page 2. On the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth bullet down. The second sentence, she stated that if there is a master sign, applicants are typically allowed one freestanding sign on their lot. Okay, and that's just a typo. So with those corrections, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of June 14th.
So moved.
Okay, Bush. Second, Freeman. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, those are approved. All right. Now, we are here for a public hearing in case 213-005-003. It's a request for a variance for relief from Article 4, Section 411.2, parking of the Plymouth zoning ordinance. It's a request from Brian Young through his agent Jeff Lewis of North Point Engineering for reduction in parking spaces with a residential institutional use on Boulder Point Drive. This property is located in the industrial commercial zone. Okay, Mr. Lewis, would you like to present your application?
My name is Jeff Lewis from North Point Engineering. I was here a couple of months ago before you folks for an extension of the special exception that we received last year for this project. It's starting to gear up now, and we have some changes that we'd like to go over with you tonight, as well as a request for reduction in parking. I would like to just hand out quickly. I know you received
Okay.
number 17.
Right.
You have a updated plan, which looks quite a bit different than that version.
Okay, and I'd just like to say for the folks watching at home that we are talking about the Soldier On project, which will be up on Boulder Point. Okay,
So I'm going to presume that everyone is familiar with this from recent memory of the project. We had been proposing 52 units for veterans housing. This is specifically for homeless veterans. And Soldier On is the proponent, is the developer, is the applicant. Brian Young is a current property owner, so Soldier On will be purchasing the property from Brian. This project is going through a couple different sorts of funding processes. One is through the Veterans Administration through the VASH funding, which they've received VASH funds for, which is good. And the second is the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, which is this summer and this fall. So right now, they have an application at the end of August, a final application to New Hampshire Housing, and are hopeful and optimistic that in the fall, around October, November timeframe, they'll receive an award from that, which will allow the project to move forward next construction season. So this started over a year ago. It's been refined. These processes are competitive, so they are in competition specifically for the New Hampshire Housing funding, and really trying to have all the ducks in a row. Last year, we were much more preliminary with the site, and they're really trying to refine it right now and get a workable plan. So I believe right around the last time I met with you folks, they were bringing on an architect who's an architect from out of state, from Albany, New York, who's done a couple of the other, I believe, at least one, I believe, a couple of other sites that Soldieron has done down in Massachusetts and New York, so they wanted someone who's familiar with their program. And as a result, we have modified the plan since we were here before, and even since we submitted the variance application. So the new layout, actually, I'll just walk you through very quickly. This is the plan you folks saw back in May when we were here. It was 52 units. It was the same plan that we taken to the planning board last summer, and we were just asking for an extension of the special exception. This is the plan that we then submitted last month, which looks very similar, and that's the first half-size plan you have there. And the only difference between these two plans is we're asking that we not be required to build the parking spaces, about half of the parking spaces at this time, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And then the plan I just handed out is this plan, which is the plan we've submitted to the planning board, and we'll be at the planning board meeting later this month, which is a revision to the layout of the buildings. It's a new building footprint from the new architect, and they're proposing 54 units instead of 52, so it's an increase of 2 units, which they think better works for their application. They think they can support that now that they have the VASH funding, and it works better for their being competitive in the New Hampshire Housing funding round. Other than that, we had taken a look at a lot of the construction costs associated with the site improvements out there and realized that in order to be competitive, we needed to try to reduce some of the site costs. So that led to this modification in the design, which kind of compacted everything a little bit. It slid it up the hill a little bit, which is to the south, just to try to make better use of the terrain. So there's a little bit less site improvements that will be required on this, which will help with the funding, knowing that the construction costs will be a little bit less. So this is the plan that, again, we're advancing right now. In terms of the program, it's very similar to what was approved before. It's just a little bit different layout. And as you can see on this plan, similarly, we're proposing 27 parking spaces be built right now, which is, there's 54 proposed units, so that'd be 1 space per every 2 units, which is half of what's required by the zoning. And we're showing where if we have to build all 54 spaces, where we would build them and designating them as future parking. Our plan would be if the zoning board does grant the variance for the parking reduction, that we'd basically grade off these areas, leave them flat, and if there ever was a need for parking, they could be paved. We'll account for them in our drainage calculations as impervious area, but we're requesting tonight that you grant us the variance so we do not have to construct those 27 spaces. Our feeling, or the feeling of Soldieron from their other facilities, is that these folks who are going to be living here and owning these units generally don't have their own vehicles. It's a very small percentage that do. So building 54 parking spaces, 1 per unit, is going to be far in excess of what's needed out there. They think that if we build 27 spaces, or 1 per every 2 units, that's going to be more than enough for what will ever be needed out there. But, you know, we are sensitive to the fact that, you know, we don't want to be in a situation where there's problems with parking on streets. I mean, that's the intent of the regulation, is to ensure that there's no clogging of streets. So we want to make a provision. In a lot of other municipalities, this is something that can be handled through the planning board with a conditional use permit or something, where you're showing that you can build the spaces, and if you ever need to, the town could come back and say, yeah, we have a problem on the street, we want you to build those. There is not that mechanism in Plymouth, so we have to come to the zoning board of adjustment in order to ask for this relief, which is why we're here. And again, if that's not granted, they'll just build these additional parking spaces. So that's kind of where we're at. We submitted the variance application. I'm more than happy to walk through the criteria. If you like, it is a variance request from Article 411, Section 2, for a reduction in the number of required off-street parking spaces, which the ordinance requires 1 space per residential room for residential institution use, and we're asking for 0.5 spaces per residential room, which is a reduction of half the required parking spaces. I'll just quickly go through the criteria if that's okay. I'm not sure if you...
Questions first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
It seems to me when we originally approved the original variance way back a couple years ago, that there was some buildings on that plan for common areas.
Yeah.
Are those gone?
So the common area plan is, what happened was, I'm going to do my best to explain this because I'm without support from Soldier on here tonight unexpectedly, but they were early on in the process, and they were modeling this facility after one of the facilities they had down in Massachusetts. So they're trying to provide this similar on-site facilities. This project, over the course of the winter, received the VASH funding. And I'm just going to read something here that was provided to me from my client, which is Soldier On. The project, and they've worked with VASH as to what they need and want to see on the site. And what they say is that the VASH subsidies require that the VAMC, which is the Veterans Area Medical Center, determine that the specific veteran requires supportive service to retain housing and for Soldier On to provide on-site services. So some of those services that VASH provides funding for are on-site case management support. So it'll be case managers coming to units. They provide transportation for the residents to access the VA and community services in Plymouth.
Who provides the transportation?
The Soldier On will provide the transportation, so as part of their operation, they have transportation. They receive vouchers or funding from VASH to do that. Okay. So these are new things from last year, that what they realize is with that additional funding, they can reduce the amount of on-site facilities they have to construct, and instead be providing services to come in as well as transportation to go out, rather than as much on-site facilities as they were originally thinking.
So in your plan, is there any place for services to come in other than the client's apartments?
They'll have small common areas. Each of the buildings are being designed with basically a small, I think of it as like a dorm room type common area, just for a small, I'm not sure how big it is, but there would be a small common area. I think of it as like a conference room,
Like a
small
lounge or
size.
yeah.
Like a lounge is
But there's no place like in the original plan where these guys could get together in one building?
There's not a separate building, correct.
And I remember, I
That's
think
right.
that original plan had a kitchen in it, in fact.
There was intended to be, food service
Right.
type. Yep.
And you've cut back on the greenhouse also.
Where's the greenhouse?
The greenhouse was, I think we had shown,
On the left down here.
You made it smaller in the plan that we saw a couple
Oh,
of
there
months
it is.
ago, and now it seems to be gone altogether.
the plan that went to the planning board that you
Oh,
saw
that
was,
plan.
had a 600 square foot greenhouse, and the greenhouse right now is just moved down here. So it's still on the plan, it's just down off that, kind of off the cul-de-sac down there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Just, if I could, just interject for a point of reference, this has gone to the planning board and has had conditional review with the conditional approval with the express purpose of knowing that this is still being refined. So any of these changes are legit, if you will, because, I mean, they're still working through the process. The concept is still there with the multiple buildings, which is predicated, on the original variance, but unless any of this applies expressly to zoning, I mean, conversationally, it's fine, but, I mean, it's,
Right,
yeah.
Right, well, but also, Sharon, I'm just, where do the extra rooms come in? And when we granted our approval,
That was buildings, multiple.
it was on multiple
main structures,
buildings, so it
you had
doesn't...
no purview to the amount, well, I mean, yeah, if the buildings themselves were to originally, let's say, house 15 units, and then all of a sudden that's morphed into like
Right,
100
like
units per
32, I
building.
mean-
Right, so you have 2 additional above what was preliminarily offered.
I'm
I
just
mean,
saying
yeah.
so that all the Ts are crossed and
Right, right.
Is
No,
are
it's fine.
dotted. I
That-
wonder, you don't need to come back to increase the number of rooms or anything.
That's
Okay,
minimal, if not,
right,
nothing.
okay. I have a question, Mr. Lewis. I think you referred to, my memory is that these individual units are going to be owned by the veteran?
They have some, let me see how to describe it. They have some equity in the units, the answer is yes.
Okay,
I'm not sure exactly how that's structured, but they do have a equity interest in the units.
okay, I just wondered, it's based on the experience of the other projects that you feel they don't need, there won't be enough cars there to warrant the full parking spaces?
That's correct, yeah. They say that 15 to 20% of the residents in the other facilities have, and maybe less, that may be the maximum, they have their own vehicles. So you're talking about people maybe coming to visit once in a while, I'm not sure.
Right.
I mean, we're strictly, obviously, they don't want a situation where there's too many cars on site, not enough parking spaces,
Right.
so.
Yeah. Okay, but you also have an area that could be further developed into parking?
Yeah, oh yeah, there's
If this is
plenty of
granted.
room on the site. We want to make it easy,
Mm-hmm.
to add parking, or add, pave areas if we need to.
Okay. Omer, did you have?
Yes, I had a follow-up
Question.
to Howard's first question. The transportation that's supposed to provide the veterans transportation to a medical facility, there's been a lot of discussion in the media the last, year or so about the veterans having these cards that can take, so that they don't have to go a long distance, like to White River Junction or down to Manchester, especially here in the rural area. And what I thought was one of the guiding principles for this particular plan was the fact that there's medical facilities right up there, right across the street from where they're going to be, as at Boulder Point. So, I mean, if these veterans have part of this program, as I understand it, is to, give these veterans, an opportunity to, because they're coming from a tough state where they're homeless, to where they're going to be homeowners, and it's, they're going to really shine and all of this. So I guess I'm misunderstanding if there's going to be a lot of long haul transportation coming out of this facility to take these men to White River or to Manchester or Jamaica Plain down in Massachusetts, depending upon what the facilities are. Because we've got quite a, medical facilities right here in Plymouth that should be able to meet, I would assume at least 90 to 95% of any of these men's medical needs. But, so I'm a little concerned about, I'm concerned about this whole thing. I mean, I think each of these men deserve to have their own parking space for their own unit. And as I drive around the circle, the Rumney traffic circle, and I see, we approved a plan over there, and as I'm driving over there, there's cars parked on all sides of those roadways leading up to that new storage facility and that new restaurant there. I would hate to see that happening on this facility here. Again, this is, this is giving these men a chance to really, shine within the community. And I think if they've got, I'm thinking on Thanksgiving or Christmas, they have a relative come in, each one of their relatives should be able to have, if they don't have a car, I think each one of their relatives should have a place to park there. Anyway, maybe I'm going above and beyond, but I feel very badly for any of the men that are gonna be residents up there if they don't have their own parking space, but.
The only thing I wanted to add to that is, I don't know where the medical services are provided for the, it may depend on the individual, but the transportation is more than just for medical transportation. It's getting them to the stores and getting them, there's transportation locally for other reasons. So I think, a lot of that is, just local into Plymouth. If they have to go outside of Plymouth for some medical reason, I'm not sure how often that would occur.
And is that provided by Soldier On? Is that
Yes.
not, the senior center or
It's
making use of local?
It's part of the program and the services Soldier On provides at their facilities is transportation services to all 54 residents. Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to go through your criteria for us? Did you have something to say before we started asking you questions?
I'm happy to just, read through a paraphrase what we submitted for the criteria, just so it's on the record. Explaining how the granting of the variance will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. This specific variance is not for use, it's just for a reduction in parking spaces for the veterans' housing, which is a specific and unique use. The parking demand is much less than for other uses of the same type, and the need for parking is based on the documented need at other facilities. The parking demand will be met on-site and will not affect surrounding properties, in our view. Number 2, explain how the granting the permit will not be contrary to the public interest. We believe that the proposed use is low-intensity use that will provide, and the development will provide transportation to the residents. Constructing parking spaces that are suitable for the proposed use while providing the ability to expand the parking in the future would not be contradictory to the public interest. Number 3, explain how denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship to the applicant. Include why the zoning restriction as applied to the applicant's property interferes with the applicant's reasonable use of the property, considering the unique setting of the property and its environment. Also explain why there is no fair and substantial relationship between the general purpose of the ordinance and the specific restriction on the property, and how the variance would not injure the public or private rights of others. We feel that the hardship is created simply by requiring more parking spaces that are needed for particular use. In this case, the use is unique, and the residents typically do not have their own vehicles. Constructing one parking space per unit would be excessive and create a hardship on the project. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because it would ensure that the unnecessary impervious surface area will not be constructed. And lastly, the use will not be contrary to the spirit of the ordinance, because the spirit of the ordinance in this respect is to ensure that there is adequate off-street parking for particular uses. The proposed use requires less parking than normally dictated by the ordinance and will still provide ample off-street parking.
Okay.
Is the main reason that you're seeking the variance not only because the residents have less need for parking, is it also the cost of the parking area?
Well, it's a little of both, I'd say. We identified it last year when we were moving forward with the project, and they realized that they needed 54 parking spaces, and didn't really we didn't talk about it enough before we came forward with the project to look into what they would need for parking. So we just were trying to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance and not ask for anything. But we've had this additional time over the course of a year, and we're taking a harder look at it. And so that is one consideration is a site cost. The other is, what is needed out there. The first thing I ever do is ask someone when they have a particular use like this, what do you think you need? The zoning ordinance is for residential institution, 1 space per unit. It's just, who knows what the use is. So on here, they very strongly feel that they don't need that. They'll build them because they have to per ordinance, but.
See, I'm torn here because if you go up to the seniors housing project off of Langdon Street, there's a lot of parking places that aren't used,
Yep.
okay? So I think that you're in the same situation. However, I think cutting it 50% is a lot. We came into the same thing a couple years ago on Fairgrounds Road when they put in an elderly project up there, and they didn't want to put in as many parking spaces, and we gave them a variance to put in some parking that wasn't paved.
Yep.
I was just gonna get
I'm
to
more
that.
inclined to do that.
Yeah, I was just
As
gonna
a
mention
member of
that.
the board, to approve something like that, so that there's some place for these people to park, should it be needed before it's necessary.
Could I just interject? I just feel a need to as the planner here. I mean, Howard's on the track that I was going to. And I know you're not at the deliberative stage yet, but, you know, because after this meeting tonight, on the 21st of this month, this modified site plan review will be going to the planning board. They're going to look at the same issues, whether or not you grant the variance, or how you grant the variance. I mean, it does start here, but you've got to remember that Jeff had said it was going to be leveled and graded, so there was the possibility of future parking spaces, paved or unpaved. And you are dealing with impervious surface here. We have a large lot, so it's not critical, but pavement's pavement. It creates drainage issues. You know, you have to mitigate it. So there's some opportunities for you folks to consider something other than black or white.
Exactly.
Because this is what this is now. Were this to expand, hopefully not, I mean, yes and no. I mean, you want to, hopefully there isn't the need, but if there is the need, and Soldier Lawn went back to the planning board, you know, that would trigger another round with you folks. So this isn't cast in stone, it's just what it is now with hopefully some contingencies, so you're planning well for the future. There's a possibility of a little bit of creativity on your part, which the planning board would then pick up and run with. So I just wanted to
So
remind
are
you of
you
that.
kind of hinting that we can approve this with conditions?
You can't tell the planning board what to do, but I can suggest it. You can couch it in terms that, you know, such and such an amount, let's say theoretically, because they are intending on grading it.
My concern is this looks like a really classy project. They're talking about granite curbing on one of the sides, correct?
Yep.
And I just don't want to see a bunch of cars parked on grass.
No, but this
We see that enough in Plymouth already.
But this is the thing again, and this is what, and I
Because
will.
there's no parking.
I will be quiet, but this is a very highly specialized type of development with a long history, and I know you know that, but I don't think these folks, Soldier On, are just trying to cut corners. I think that their other developments have proven, so they've got some data on this, you know what I'm saying? So that's something to consider also. It's a little different, it's a hybrid, it's more of a hybrid project than just a generic.
I think that I just have to live with the fact that we're voting on this request here. Really, that's it.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody have any other questions? I'll open the public hearing. Freeman, are you okay? Okay, is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this variance? Is there anybody who would like to speak against granting the variance? And anybody, oh, Eleanor?
I think in regards to the parking and the space that they have, I think each building, I think each person should have a parking space. And I think it should be big enough to make allowances for, somebody spoke about service trucks with food coming in. No?
Nope.
I thought I heard someone say about service trucks with food. They're going to have their own food up there and everything?
They're individual apartments, they're individual one-bedroom apartments for one person, and it is only one person, it's not couples or anything, it's just single males with a one-bedroom.
Yeah, but how are they getting their food?
They have a small kitchenette type thing, not a full kitchen per se.
And they have to go shopping?
Right, but they're right next to Walmart, so it's kind of a good location.
Well, I think they should really make allowances to have trucks, and in case a truck should come in. And I'm not sure about how they're going to take care of these. Are they going to need someone to go in, like to help bathe them? What happens if they need that kind of help?
Yeah, I don't know.
If they need someone to go in to do something like that, they should have a place to be able to park in front of the
Right,
person's
yeah, so
house
you're-
or apartment that they're going to have to go to, instead of walk.
Right. You're concerned about in the future if there's a need for somebody to receive some kind of care, that they be able to park close by. Okay, well, thank you. Is there anybody, would you like to say anything, Jeff, in response?
Yeah, I'll just say a couple things that come to mind. If you look at this plan that we've submitted, just to kind of maybe walk you through it a little bit, and if we do build 54 parking spaces, whether they're all paved or whether it's a combination of some paved or some gravel or grass or something, there will not be designated spaces, one per unit. There will just be 54 parking spaces that will be largely unused all of the time. But the intent here is that there's kind of what we're calling a courtyard or common area in between the buildings. So the front of the buildings are really, these three, kind of the front is this side, and this one right here, the front is this side, so they're kind of facing each other. The idea is to have as many individual entrances to the units as possible. So there's some units that are that entered from the back side here, and that is their door into their unit in the back. So they have some sense of, independence away from everybody else, but they're brought together through here. This is basically a 6-foot or 7-foot wide concrete walk that we have some grass paved, so that structured grass that widens out to 20 feet, just for fire lane access, because we need to be able to get fire trucks in around here closer to these buildings. But there'll be no driving through here. So in terms of parking spaces close to the buildings, that's just something that this development's not gonna have. I mean, this building will have some kind of close to it, and this one will a little bit, but in large part, parking close to the units is not going to happen on this property, because they just don't generally have cars.
You didn't do that before in the other iterations either, correct?
Right, well, yeah, the other ones weren't quite as excessive. As I was saying, the parking was all up here, and the units were in the back with no
direct
parking
access.
spaces close to them. So that is that's the nature of the program. So if there's 54 spaces, these folks who are living there are gonna have no sense that there's one space for them, designated for them. There's just gonna be a bunch of empty spaces. So, I think that if the board is not inclined to grant a variance, or if there's some precedent that you're concerned with, we would certainly be looking to have an alternative treatment out there, so we don't have to pave it. We'd do some type of grass pave, similar to what we're doing in here, which is just basically a structure with grass, grass that can support parking. It's what we'd like to do these other ones, and it's unclear to me if we need a relief from the zoning board or not. Did we determine that, or
If you,
build the parking spaces out of grass? Is that?
no, a parking space is a parking space.
Parking space, yeah,
Yeah,
so-
the site plan regulations don't differentiate as long as
So-
it's,
Again, what ideally, we'd be coming to the planning board and handling this just with them and saying, look, can we have a conditional use permit to build just these spaces, and we'll design these and we'll
Right.
flatten them, and if the planning board comes in and says, geez, you have a parking problem on the site, then they can tell us to go pave the rest of the spaces, and everything's already there to do it. We just don't have that mechanism in Plymouth yet, so we have to come to the zoning board.
I just thought of something, Jeff. Did we ask, is it, are these units handicap accessible? Are there certain?
I believe certain.
Certain ones are
there's
designated?
two stories, so there's no, the first floor ones will be some that are handicap accessible.
Right, with like the shower?
Yes, and
Area,
I couldn't tell you the
Yeah.
percentage, but
Okay.
but all the walks are accessible entrances to all the buildings, so we have no steps on the site, and everything's less than, within the grading parameters of ADA accessibility.
Okay. Okay, well, I will close the public hearing. And we can deliberate. Why don't we start by stating some facts?
The developer has a long history in planning these projects. Feels that the proposed parking would be adequate.
Okay, believes.
What happens if I disagree with that statement, Madam Chairman?
Okay,
The parking is adequate. I mean, in looking at the plan, if I may, Howard, looking at the plan, again, as I understand the program, this Soldier On program is to develop pride of ownership, in these men that have served their country faithfully and have, they've suffered, and this is an attempt to give them back some of the pride and independence that they can have by owning their own units. And I can see right off the bat now, with the applicant here this evening presenting this, I can see these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parking spaces here on the right side of the development. I can see the men wanting to, be able to, even if they don't have a car, or if they don't have a vehicle, I can see them wanting to take, hold that piece of ground for their unit, and then on the other side, on the left side, for the other building there, which I can't read the number, I don't know.
6.
Building number 3. The first one is building number 1. Building number 3, and there's supposed to be 14 units in each one of those, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parking spaces that are relatively close to both building 1 and building 3. And, if I own a place, I want to be able to get in there. And again, we're trying to repay these veterans who served us faithfully, and to not to even give them one parking space. And I guess I'm just perplexed and surprised and discouraged at this change. And maybe I wasn't paying attention, a year ago when we granted this, or over a year ago, but, the purpose of this program, as I understand it, and I'm a little bit familiar with what's going on down in Massachusetts, I'm just surprised. I'm disappointed. And I don't have any problem with the parking spaces being unpaved. I mean, certainly, we've got parking spaces, all over the place up in these neck of the woods where they're not necessarily paved. I don't have a problem with, with them being, unpaved, but I'm sorry, I have to disagree that.
okay, well, I think the statement was that the developer believes that the reduced parking is adequate for the project.
Not the board, the
Yeah,
developer.
so what, we're finding facts here now, so, let's see. Developer has a history of planning such projects. What else do we want to say?
There's room for additional parking should it be needed.
Okay. Plan
Developer has stated
allows
that they will
additional-
provide additional parking if needed.
additional parking if needed. I mean, I don't have a problem with the statement that the developer believes the reduced parking is adequate. We individually might not believe that, but I don't know what we want to do about that.
Madam Chairman, especially in light of the fact that our zoning ordinance says on this type of I know they can come in for a variance, but
Yep.
in terms of future, who knows what's going to happen in the future, Maybe we're going to have a time when the veterans aren't going to, homeless veterans aren't going to need that anymore, and this may be turned into regular
That's true.
civilian dwellings.
That would be a change of use. It would have to go before the planning board for site plan. Absolutely a change of use.
But-
This is very specific use.
Yeah,
But
but
I'm
we don't
just
know what's
looking into the
going,
future,
yeah, goes on in the future.
And our zoning ordinances do call for one parking space, and I guess
Okay.
the zoning board, we're supposed to be the conscience of the community sitting here, and
Okay, well, let's put that in. Zoning ordinance requires 1 parking space per residential unit. This plan, this plan reduces parking spaces by 1/2. Okay, those are 2 facts. The plan allows additional parking if needed.
And this was redesigned again because of funding.
Okay, right, plan was redesigned due to funding proposals.
Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's why it's being reconfigured. What else? Okay, one member of public spoke against granting.
We've had no abutters.
No abutters appeared. Appeared to object, appeared or wrote to object. All right, anything else?
I did get a call from Dean Yetton,
Yes?
who said he had no objections to it, but he didn't necessarily say, please tell the board. He just said, I'm not coming because I don't think this is of any consequence, but just FYI. I
Okay,
just remembered that.
okay. Oh, well, do we want to put that in as a fact? Dean Yetton spoke with planner? Yeah. I was surprised to see how many abutters there were for this.
Well, it's all
a
that
big
commercial
list.
development
Right.
across the street, yeah.
Dean Yetton called planner to say he has no objection. Okay. Should we put in something that members feel, or board feels, undeveloped or additional parking needs to be available for development? We like that part of the plan. I mean, should we put something in there in our facts, or?
I mean, that the developer has planned for additional parking if needed?
That's right, we have that. Plan allows additional
Room
parking.
for
Okay.
expansion of parking if
Yeah.
needed. So it's a
Okay.
contingency, it's a de facto contingency
Right.
if you need it.
So what we're approving tonight, the plan allows,
I think that we have to look at this whole thing as, we've approved some variances before where there's no possibility of additional parking. Just in order for that person, the builder to build on that spot. This plan has tons of additional parking if needed. And I think that's what we need to look at in this. I think Sharon kind of grounded me when we were talking about this, that's what we're looking at. We have to set our own personal feelings aside and look at what they're asking here. It's not saying that these people don't deserve parking spaces. It's that they're not going to use it, and if they do need it, they're going to build it. That's the way I feel about it now.
Right, and that could very well come into play, as a shall. The last stop bus route is site plan approval.
Right.
You are either allowing or not allowing them the ability to have that mechanism to
Right.
put in a contingency.
right, well, that's what I mean, it's really the province of the planning board to decide if they like the plan or the design and how it's laid out and all of that. That's not.
I like the fact that it's available.
Yeah, I like
so-
that too.
It's very flat there, correct, Jeff?
Yeah, that the
Fairly
space
flat.
is
I know you have to do
available.
some grading, but that's not sloped there too much. Yeah. Yeah, it's the old gravel pit.
Yeah, so, okay, well, I think we have enough facts. Is there anything else anybody would like to add before we go through the criteria? Okay. Granting the variance will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. Freeman?
True.
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 False.
Okay, 4 true, 1 false. All right, 2, the variance will not be contrary to public interest.
False.
True.
False.
True.
False.
Okay, you gotta back up here. Please, if you would, okay. Contrary to public interest, okay, so Freeman said false.
Okay,
And Howard-
Freeman, Patrice, and Omer voted false, and we shall articulate what we think. It will not be contrary to public interest as it dramatically reduces the amount of parking required by the ordinance.
Can you articulate that when I write the notice of decision? I mean, and I'm not being sarcastic, trust me, that's obvious. So can you give me a bit of a rationale?
Yes, I can. These people who are coming in to take over these areas to live, they are going to be part of the public interest. They're going to be public beings. They deserve as much as any public person, if not more.
So the board feels, or the 3 members that voted against it feel that more parking spaces are required, as in a normal residential area.
Okay, that's the key, as
Yeah.
in, okay.
You know,
As
that
in a-
we're not willing to reduce the amount of parking because it's,
Okay,
you know,
outside of
homeless
the
veteran population.
specific I'm just kind of talking at myself. Yeah.
If I may be allowed to expand on that, if you don't have, in my opinion, if you don't have designated parking spots there, and again, you got a holiday or something big is going on there, there may be that area over there that's undesignated, but it could be parking, but they may be parking on the side of the roadways there, and who knows where they may go in there, and maybe they're gonna drive in between, maybe you'll have barricades in there, but I just can see that people will not park where, some people may not use good judgment in their parking when they need to find a place to park, and they want to get close. You know, they've got a sister or a mother who's using a walker, and they're going to want to get that as close to the son's unit as possible. So I just, you know, that's where I'm coming from. I just think that's not going to be in the public's best interest to have cars parked over there in undesignated spots, and I can see that happening.
Okay, number 3, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship to the applicant upon proof that, A, the zoning restriction as applied to the applicant's property interferes with the applicant's reasonable use of the property, considering the unique setting of the property and its environment.
False.
I have to say false on that one, too.
Okay, false.
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 Okay, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general purposes of the zoning ordinance and the specific restriction on the property.
False.
I'll say true.
Okay, false.
True.
False.
Okay. All right, number C, the variance would not injure the public or private rights of others.
False.
I'll say true.
Okay, Howard, I'm saying false.
True.
False.
Okay, Howard and Butch. And 4, granting the variance would do substantial justice.
False.
I'll say true.
Okay, Howard, False.
True.
False.
And 5, the use will not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the ordinance.
False.
True.
False.
True.
False.
Okay. Okay,
Madam Chair, once again, I'm going to need some rationale on the false majority votes. Like
Okay.
you did on the prior one.
right. The zoning restrictions applied interferes with the applicant's reasonable use of the property, considering the unique setting of the property and its environment. You know, does anybody want to articulate why that is false?
He's got plenty of room. I mean, he's got.
Right,
he's
there's
got
plenty of room,
to
space
put those in,
available.
to put the spaces in. Without having sufficient designated spaces, you run the risk of people parking in unsafe, unapproved places which could create danger because, you know, yes, there's gonna be a lot of pedestrian traffic over there, but there's gonna still be cars that are coming in there, and I just,
Okay,
think there's
let's
a
say
danger.
there's plenty of space available to develop in accordance with
That's,
the,
I just need something because.
in
it's-
accordance with the
justified,
zoning,
That's all.
okay? And then, let's see, you have 3, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general purposes of the zoning ordinance. That's just not true. Requiring, the zoning ordinance requires 1 space per residential unit. That's, I don't know what else to say about that. And the variance would not injure the public or private rights of others. You want to say 3 board members believe that each residential unit is entitled to a parking space. I mean,
that's part of it.
we
and-
feel
I think
that,
if you're gonna say that, you're gonna say that the zoning
there's,
states that each
I don't think
apartment
there's a
gets a parking
hardship.
space.
Is saying
I
what?
don't think we say each person is entitled to a
Right,
parking
each
place.
unit, residential unit.
You just need to stick to what the zoning laws say. It says each unit is entitled to parking, you should have 1 parking space. I don't think you should make it so personal.
No, but there's 1 person in each unit, and.
Right, but it's 1, so just say residential unit, yes. Requires 1 parking space. I'm just concerned about visitors and having enough space for anybody who wants to go in there.
We don't take that and apply it to anything else either, don't forget. You know,
You can't extrapolate.
we don't apply that to anything
Can't
else we approve
extrapolate.
either. We
You
don't
just gotta look at
have
the
to
numbers.
look out for visitors or visiting nurses or
Right, well,
anything.
but we don't reduce the parking for
That's
most
true,
other, you know, so that's all. All right, well, what do we do here? I entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, if I may, I make a motion that we not approve the variance as requested.
Okay, motion not to approve, all in favor?
Is there a second to that?
Oh,
Second.
second, Freeman, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, you have 3 ayes. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Howard and Butch opposed. Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis. Thank you for your presentation. Hopefully, right, hopefully it can be worked out. The planning board.
Bear in mind, nothing against you, sir.
Yeah.
He's the hired gun.
Right, it's,
Not emotionally involved.
maybe there can be, you know, something worked out with the planning board as far as the number of spots, that they won't require a variance.
The type, no, they'll
Yeah.
have to have the number.
Right, but that's what
But
I'm saying.
we're talking paved and unpaved, that's,
Right.
yeah,
Right,
Yeah,
well, that's what I'm
right,
saying. I'm
right.
sure that could be,
right. It's essentially the same thing.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that Eleanor had a
It's
very
just not a
good point
variance.
when she
All right, well,
said that.
thank you, everybody, for working through that one. It was-
Do you have any business on the agenda for August?
I beg your
Do we
pardon?
have everything for August yet?
No, today was the deadline, so you don't. I was going to tell you that if we
Excellent.
get through this.
So we're
Okay.
free?
So unfinished business, no meeting in August?
Correct, yeah. I will,
Okay.
I'll send you a
Okay.
formal
New business,
announcement.
Communications and other
Thanks,
business?
Jeff.
Adjournment?
No, all set.
You all set, Sharon?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Howard, motion to adjourn. Butch, all in favor?
Aye.